announced that they are moving forward with mass firings during a government shutdown. This is the Doge 2.0 that we knew was coming. This is the reality of what the administration is doing. Further attacks on Virginians, on their jobs, and importantly, on Virginia's economy. And once again, my opponent refuses to stand up for Virginians or for our economy. We saw it all since January, when Doge first started, when Virginians started losing their jobs, when we saw month after month after month of rising unemployment rates, 7 in total. My opponent said nothing. When we saw that Virginia lost our #1 place for business and CNBC said it was because of the Doge firings that they lowered our ranking, my opponent said nothing. And now here we are in a government shutdown where federal employees and government contractors are spending day after day after day out of work or not getting paid while working, and the administration is using it as a reason to further fire federal employees. This is absolutely outrageous. I will continue to call on the president to stop this Doge 2.0 effort, to stop attacking Virginians and our economy. And I will continue to call on the president to bring people together to put an end to this shutdown. It needs to happen. He needs to show leadership, and my opponent needs to do the same.
Donald Trump just came on during a press conference saying that he is coming for federal workers who are Democrat-oriented. He's going to fire you if you're a Democrat, and he's using the federal shutdown as an opportunity to do it. This is Project 2025. This is authoritarian. This is scary. You need to be talking about this. I'm just a mom who's nervous for her daughter's future. If you're nervous too, you need to be talking about it, make videos, share, talk to your friends, talk to your family. This is not normal. The president of the United States, just came on and said he is coming for Democratic-oriented federal workers.
Russell Vogt said the reductions in force have begun related to this shutdown. How many layoffs have you authorized for this first round, and from which agencies?
And it will be Democrat-oriented, because we figure, they started this thing, so they should be Democrat-oriented. It'll be a lot. And I must tell you, a lot of them happen to be Democrat-oriented.
Let me get this straight. Trump and Russell Vogt were going to riff federal employees already. But Trump is saying that he's going to fire Democrat employees because the Democrats are the ones shutting down the government, even though he was going to do it already. And MAGA is okay that Trump is laying off Democrat employees as retribution for them shutting down the government, even though it's in Project 2025, co-authored by Russell Vogt, which Trump campaigned and said that he didn't know anything about Project 2025, and MAGA is okay with all of this. Knowing that Trump is lying to them repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. Do I got that? Is that pretty close? I don't like being lied to, and I would really like American people to not be okay with being lied to by the President of the United States, so that he can implement some kind of fucking plan that is not in your best interest. Why are you okay with being lied to, man?
It is now day 16 of the government shutdown. The White House has already fired about 4,000 workers, and now they're threatening to fire at least 10,000. But they could face a major roadblock ahead. Unions have started suing the Trump administration, a federal judge now putting those planned mass layoffs on hold for now. But hundreds of thousands of federal workers still caught in the middle of this shutdown. The president says that he has redirected funds to pay the military and the FBI, but TSA workers, air traffic controllers, contractors, they are all not getting paid right now. And truly, there's no end in sight. These two sides are not even talking to each other.
So reports are that the White House is presently firing large numbers of federal employees during the shutdown. Let's be clear, that is probably illegal. Hi, I'm Tom Spiegel with the Spiegel Law Firm. We help people who have been fired or afraid that they might be. Under the Civil Service Reform Act, federal service workers have due process rights. You can't just use a government shutdown as an excuse to purge a large number of federal workers. A reduction in force has strict rules. You have notice requirements, rankings, appeal rights. None of that disappears just because funding ran out. So if you're a federal employee, here are 3 things that I would do. Number one, document everything: emails, memos, directives, especially anything that suggests this is a coordinated effort coming from on high, which we know that it is. Act quickly to protect your rights. You have 30 days to file with the Merit System Protection Board or potentially file a grievance. Number three, get help. Contact your union, contact employment attorneys, other legal service organizations that can help protect your rights. We have to be clear-eyed about this. The Supreme Court has certainly telegraphed that it's going to give the Trump administration broad authority to do what it wants with the federal workforce. But the large-scale action can gum up the works and could blunt some of the worst effects of this. Federal employees aren't political pawns. They are career public servants, and they deserve the protection that the law provides. So feel free to follow me for other updates. We're welcome to reach out to our office with any questions. We represent federal workers nationwide. Thinking about you guys. Good luck out there.
The government shutdown just turned into permanent layoffs. Let me explain in 30 seconds or less. The Trump administration started laying off thousands of federal workers. And no, this is not furloughs. These are permanent layoffs called reductions in force. At least 4,000 federal workers got layoff notices. The biggest cuts from the Treasury Department and Health and Human Services, over 1,100 each. This is all according to a Justice Department filing in a federal court in San Francisco. In a press conference on October 10th, President Trump said the firings will be Democrat-oriented. Now, two major unions filed a lawsuit to block the firings. One union represents federal workers in Social Security and Homeland Security, and the other represents more of public workers like people who work in healthcare. They're calling these layoffs illegal, and they actually have a court hearing on Wednesday in San Francisco, so time will tell what happens with that. So there's a lot to unravel with this government shutdown. If you need some help navigating through it, I'm Brianna. I am an Emmy Award-winning anchor. I'm a native New Yorker, and I help navigate all the things from news, interesting headlines, pop culture. Let me know. I can help you navigate that. And if you have any other questions about the government shutdown, let me know.
We're getting a clearer picture of what federal employees were actually fired during Russell Voigt's purge of the federal government. And what we're seeing is that they went after anything that aligned left. And Donald Trump admitted as much, saying that they were going after Democrat-aligned agencies and departments. And that's why they went once again after the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Energy, Department of Education, etc. And we're seeing that they messed up. See, they've already reinstated employees at the Centers for Disease Control, but then they've fired everybody in the Department of Education that deals with Disability Act funding. So schools that need funds to help disabled students. And even as Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, has said, this is a top priority to protect individuals and students with disabilities, Russell Voigt doesn't think so, and Donald Trump doesn't think so. So they got rid of everybody that's related and revolves around funding education for disabled students. And this could be anybody, a 504 plan, an IEP, all the way up to severe disabilities. All of that is now gone.
It's day 10 of the government shutdown, and the White House says they are going to begin the mass firing of federal workers in order to put pressure on Democrats to vote on this budget. The White House would not say how many federal workers would be fired, only that it would be substantial. And of course, none of this is required during a government shutdown. Usually employees are furloughed or the essential ones work without pay. Then once a budget is passed, those employees get back pay. This is going to have huge impacts on the economy. Just for an example, there are 57,000 federal employees in Colorado. Democrats say that these mass firings are illegal, and unions plan on suing.
House began firing thousands of federal employees that they deem non-essential. All that means, non-essential and essential during a government shutdown, are what roles are essential during a temporary government shutdown. Those that are national security or protection, essential things that need to get done during a government shutdown. Outside of a shutdown, they're all essential. But Donald Trump has decided to weaponize, again, the federal government, and he's trying to own the libs by firing thousands of employees. Let's just remind everybody that the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. This is their shutdown. They own this. They don't want to negotiate with Democrats. They don't want to extend Obamacare subsidies. That means that if they don't, many people's premiums, healthcare premiums, are going to skyrocket, are going to go up. Many of them who live in red districts, and the Republicans don't care. They want people to suffer. They really don't care. And neither does Trump. So on top of that, on top of the government shutdown where federal employees aren't being paid, certain government services aren't getting done, now Donald Trump is going to fire thousands of federal employees. This is all part of Project 2025. Russ Vought has wanted this. He's wanted to gut the federal government. So that is what is occurring here. On top of that, we got news today that the feds are likely to bring charges against John Bolton as early as next week. That is the next person in the line of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. This is complete weaponization of the Department of Justice. He ordered Pam Bondi to do this. And his ridiculous fake attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia is just doing this. She's going after whoever she can on behalf of Donald Trump. This is the breakdown of the rule of law. This is the breakdown of our economy because so many people are going to be fired and laid off. We need to continue to push back hard. Like I've said repeatedly, call your senators, call your congresspeople, protest peacefully, and just push back as hard as you can against this dictatorship. We are living in a dictatorship. That's what this is. The thin line that is left pretty much are the district and appellate courts and the American people who get out there and protest. We still can vote. There's big elections coming up this November, including in Virginia. Vote blue. And then in 2026, vote blue. Get everybody you can to vote blue so that this horrific administration is held accountable.
On Friday, the Trump administration terminated about 4,000 federal employees, and over a quarter of them were from Health and Human Services or public health agencies. Trump told reporters that the terminations would be Democrat-oriented, which was his strategy to target programs that he believed to be favored by Democratic officials. As if public health programs that keep contaminated food and water from ending up on your table or stop deadly outbreaks before they spread only help Democratic voters. As a result, several experts and insiders warned that the CDC, which was uniquely targeted, was being eviscerated and left not functional, which is extremely concerning, to say the least. Now, after thousands of federal workers received notice of termination on Friday, yesterday the administration came out and said that some of those terminations were a mistake. Critical staff working on a current outbreak of Ebola across the world that they want to keep contained. And they appear to be allowing some of the federal workers to come back. Similar to the mistakes they made back in February when DOJ terminated a bunch of very important federal employees and then said, oops, we need to bring them back. Now, they're calling these mistakes, but please remember that Russ Vought is the head of OMB. Here he is announcing these terminations on X. Russ was one of the authors of Project 2025, which was a blueprint for dismantling the federal government. And he has previously said that he wanted federal employees to feel traumatized. Before the election, he said about his plan, quote, "When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want to put them in trauma." This from the man who calls himself a Christian and wants to run the country with Christian principles, which apparently to him means inflicting trauma on thousands of people working for their government. Maybe these terminations were mistakes, or maybe they're part of the trauma that they want federal employees to feel.
I want to preface this by saying I try to stay out of anything government related because that's just not my area of expertise. But am I hearing correctly that Trump just fired almost everyone that is in charge of the Department of Special Education due to the government shutdown? Because if that's true, what the actual hell? What are we going to do? What are our children going to do? Now, if I'm wrong in my hearing, please feel free to correct me because, again, anything government related, not my area of expertise. But when I hear that he's firing the people who can assist our special needs children, I mean, Down syndrome, autism, ADHD, all of those kids with IEPs, and of course, that's just to name a few of them. Tomorrow is Monday, so are we about to start feeling the effects of this starting tomorrow? We are truly living in dark times when the government doesn't give a shit about our kids with special needs.
So while we continue in this government shutdown, Trump has just fired 4,000 federal workers. And yes, that includes CDC scientists that, track outbreaks. And this is hitting key agencies really hard. Like we have 1,300 at the IRS out. We have over 1,200 from Health and Human Services out. Dozens and dozens of CDC out. Like these are disease detectives being fired during a government shutdown. Now, the good thing is that federal unions are already suing, saying that these layoffs are illegal during a government shutdown. But Trump, the Trump administration, they don't care. They were saying that these are non-essential employees. Like, be for real. Now, let's dive into those CDC firings. So here we have a reporter for the Washington Post. She tweeted, CDC hit hard by massive firings that several staff described to me as a bloodbath. Among those reduction in force are leadership of the Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, leadership of the Global Health Center, leadership of the measles outbreak response. Like these are people that, these are people that have over 28 years of experience. And here she lists some more. Center for Forecasting and Analytics, all of CDC Washington, Office of Human Services, And then look what she says down here. These are the people who are typically the first responders in an outbreak. Like, you are letting go of these federal workers during a government shutdown? Like, what? I guess I shouldn't be surprised by what's taking place, to be honest. But as always, thank you for watching the Mexican Millennial. And don't forget to like and follow if you want to stay updated on current events. And go Dogs.
So Trump is trying to say that Democrats are forcing him to fire federal employees. So he's weak then. He's weak. Because Democrats can force him to do something against his will? So Democrats who control nothing right now can force the president of the United States to do something against his will. He's weak then. Is that what you're admitting? How weak he is? That thing he was doing before the government shut down. The thing that he promised on the campaign trail to fire all the deep state, right? That thing he's been bragging about doing all year long, and that Trump supporters have been raving and cheering, all these firings, and months later he has to be asking them to return because he realized how big of a mistake he made. But all of a sudden now it's Democrats are forcing him to fire? No, own it. Own it. Own it. Own it. Why not? This is what America voted for. And it's happening. It's felt like the government's been shut down all year anyway. And the Supreme Court said that Trump can withhold congressionally approved funds anyway. So couldn't have happened at a worse time. But the Supreme Court is going to allow Trump to withhold congressionally approved funds anyway. So what good would passing this bill mean anyway if Trump can just pick and choose what is spent and what isn't? Even though Congress is legally in charge of the funds, he can now withhold it. So again, what motive is there for Democrats to pass this bill?
Trump administration begins laying off federal workers amid shutdown, more than 4,000 to be exact. Now remember, he said he was coming after Democratic agencies. So let's take a look. But first, you got the Department of Treasury. Approximately 1,446 employees received layoff notices, including around 1,300 at the IRS. Then, just like I thought, the Department of Health and Human Services. Between 1,100 and 1,200 employees were affected. The firings reportedly hit multiple divisions and targeted employees deemed at odds with Trump's administration Make America Healthy Again agenda. Oh boy. The Department of Education. At least 466 employees have received layoff notices. The administration has reportedly fired almost all employees below the director level in the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. The Department of Housing and Urban Development. HUD. Approximately 442 employees were terminated. The Department of Commerce. Approximately 315 employees received layoff notices. That includes workers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Interesting. The Department of Homeland Security. Approximately 176 employees have been laid off. The cuts also affected agencies within the DHS, such as the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And last but not least, the Department of Energy. 187 employees have been affected. But there's more, Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Veteran Affairs, Small Business Administration. I'm starting to believe that Russ Vought is the Reaper because this Truth Social post is becoming way too real. But yeah, if you were wondering if he was coming after those Democrat agencies, he sure did. There's way too much happening in this shutdown.
I didn't anticipate for the shutdown to be more than a week. But the one thing that I did anticipate, that if it did extend itself past a week and start to go into the second week, that Trump would make good on his promises. Because the one thing that we know about the Trump administration is that you can fuck around and find out. Real talk. Like, there has been nothing, and when I say nothing, I mean nothing off the table that he has said that could possibly happen that he did not execute on, including a situation where he warned Democrats that rifts were coming if an extension was not met. Now, whose fault y'all want to blame it on? We can pass the blame. We can go back and forth. I tend to think that it's silly because even Hakeem Jeffries and the House speakers and all of this stuff, like, they have always stood on the idea that you continue to negotiate and debate through the end of the year for a final resolution or a budget, while extensions keep the government open so that you can then fund the majority of the things that we see happening in the federal government, including our military, including TSA. You could talk about air traffic control. There's a ton of things, Social Security, all of that type of stuff. And although they continue to get their paychecks, the fact that they're holding up the federal government from continuing to be open by essentially standing on the idea that illegal migrants deserve health care coverage and that they want to extend the Obamacare past the end of the year, and that they're basically holding up the federal government hostage. That's what I personally believe that they are doing in order to try to get leverage over, because you'll see them say stuff like, oh, they control all three branches of government, and they just throwing stuff out there. But we all know that they need 60 votes. So it has nothing to do with whether or not they control all three branches of government. What it more has to do with the fact that they don't need anything in their power because they have become powerless, and the people have mandated that the Trump administration, as well as Republicans who do control all three branches of government, but you still need 60 votes to continue to pass a budget. Now you're starting to see Trump make good on the things that he said that he would possibly do if, in fact, they decided that they wanted to keep the government shut down. And so, like I said, you messed around and found out. Now the question that we really have, because we know where the Republicans are on this, right? We know that the Republicans, while Trump continues to broker peace over between Israel and Hamas via Gaza, we know where Trump is. We know what he got popping off. And we know he focused on the Chinese tariffs and all of that stuff, right? The question that we now have to ask ourselves is, how dedicated are...
Holy cow, folks, the Trump administration has laid off dozens of CDC employees, including career scientists, about 70 disease detectives, as well as a large amount of the staff for the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, or MMWR. That's a publication that helps on a weekly basis give out really important public health information about potentially emerging infectious diseases and trends in the United States. According to New York Times, a group of HR staff who were furloughed because of the government shutdown had to be brought back in order to give these firing notices. And the Trump administration is using the shutdown as a way to try to fire more people, like what's happening at the CDC. Trump had said that there would be a lot of layoffs during the government shutdown and that they would be Democrat-oriented, but this is not necessarily helpful for the general public when the CDC has already been weakened. We are going to have severe problems heading into this winter if we don't have these disease detectives, career scientists, and staff at the MMWR. This is really problematic. We need you to speak with your legislators to speak out against this, because this is wrong and dangerous.
It's hard to keep up with President Trump. Here are 10 things he did over the past 5 days. You might have missed a couple. Number one, he sent out substantial layoff notices to federal workers, the first time in history during a government shutdown, that suddenly were triggering permanent termination notices. instead of temporary furloughs. Number two, he blocked furloughed workers from getting back pay. He sent out a memo claiming they're not entitled to it despite the 2019 law that guarantees retroactive pay for all federal employees. Number three, invoke threats of the Insurrection Act to deploy troops to Portland, Oregon. This after a Trump-appointed federal judge blocked his National Guard deployment twice, saying that Trump's claims of daily unrest were, quote, untethered to facts. Number four, deployed Texas National Guard troops to Chicago, sending them on a C-17 military transport plane, despite the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois suing to stop it. A federal judge on Thursday blocked the deployment, saying that it violates the United States Constitution and there's, quote, no credible evidence of a rebellion in Illinois. 200 Texas troops are already there, though. Number five, fired 139 immigration judges this since taking office. Just learned the number in September was 24 terminations. Many of these judges let go without explanation, and the Justice Department has now eliminated requirements so any attorney can be a temporary judge. Number six, announced a Gaza ceasefire deal on Wednesday with Israel and Hamas, agreeing to the first phase of his 20-point plan, saying hostages will be released on Monday or Tuesday, and Trump will travel to Egypt for an official signing. Number seven, froze $2.1 billion in Chicago infrastructure funding for bridges and roads. Trump saying the shutdown the funds are being withheld due to the shutdown, but it's just around Democratic-led cities, and he is saying there are cuts to Democrat programs. Number eight, publicly embraced Project 2025, posting about OMB Director Russ Vought being of Project 2025 fame. That's what Trump said. After spending months of denying any connection, he even said he didn't read Project 2025. Number nine, offered $2,500 to unaccompanied migrant children to voluntarily self-deport under a program rolled out by ICE and HHS. Number 10, saw flight delays at Newark, Denver, and Burbank airports due to air traffic control staffing. Control is calling out sick as the shutdown drags on and they're not getting paid. The transportation secretary warning that those numbers are going to tick up. And that was just this week, folks. Layoff notices centering a shutdown for the first time ever. Troops deployed to American cities against the governor's wishes. Immigration judges purged, and airports facing delays. Just another week in Trump's America. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And you can follow me for more updates because honestly, I get paid to do this and I barely can, so let me help you out. I'm Sue O'Connell. I'm a political commentator. You can watch me on the TV and also on NBC10Boston.com and YouTube.com/NBC10Boston.
3 things the Trump administration did this weekend. Today is Monday, October 13th. We have a bunch to cover as always. Let's get into it. Starting off with federal layoffs, the Trump administration went ahead and gutted the agency of the Department of Education that oversees special education. Let's talk about it. Sweeping layoffs took place at the Department of Education, specifically in the sector and office that oversees special education funding. The reduction in force, also known as RIF, went ahead and specifically targeted dozens of federal employees who are responsible for nearly $15 billion in education, specifically for students with special needs. To make matters worse, this funding is applicable to nearly 7.5 million students across the country who need access to this very important and imperative funding. As a matter of fact, a Department of Education employee that spoke to NPR, which I'll go ahead and put up here for both you and I to read, went ahead and said that this is decimating the office that is responsible for safeguarding the rights of infants, toddlers, children, and youth with significant disabilities. 2. More information and shutdown news. The President of the United States has officially demanded that the Department of Defense, or now Department of War, Secretary Pete Hegseth pay their troops. This comes as the Republican shutdown is now entering its 3rd week, and now troops are not going to get paid unless something is done at the national level. As a matter of fact, in a Truth Social post, which I'll put up here for both you and I to read, the president went ahead and said that I'm using my authority as Commander-in-Chief to direct our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to use all available funds to get our troops paid on October 15th. We have identified funds to do this, and Secretary Hegseth will use this to pay our troops. Now, to be very clear here, this is happening during a Republican shutdown. If Republicans just opened up the government, they wouldn't have to pull from emergency funding to pay our troops.
More so, this is coming at a time where the administration is specifically firing hundreds of thousands of other federal workers in different sectors and also cutting their budgets significantly so. And 3, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson alongside House Republicans are getting increased pressure to call back the House after being out of session for nearly 3 weeks. As a matter of fact, according to The Hill, which I'll put up here for both you and I to read, a growing number of GOP lawmakers are voicing frustration with their leadership for prolonging the House recess, warning that the optics around the inactivity could backfire on the party and benefit the Democrats. And to make matters even worse, this is happening at a time where the government is currently shut down by Republicans. I always mention on here that they control all 3 branches of government: the judiciary, which is the uber-conservative Supreme Court, the House and the Senate, which make up the legislative branch, and then of course the president, who sits on the executive branch. Now, that's all I have for you guys today, but feel free to check back in when we have some more updates specifically on the government shutdown. I highly recommend that you follow me here on TikTok as well as my YouTube, which is linked in my bio, and I'll see you guys next time on a very short episode of Politics with NJ. Bye-bye.